Today's sales strategy, Charitable IRA. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, host of the daily talk show, Let's Get Down to Business.
And I'm Don Prehn, Senior Advisor to InsMark.
Well, Don, what are we talking today in our sales idea?
Okay, well, in this situation, we have a couple that is getting basically at retirement, and they have a large IRA, and we want to see whether it makes sense to keep the beneficiary of the IRA, their children, or whether we can improve their situation by making the beneficiary of the IRA a charity and replacing that asset with a wealth replacement trust funded with cash value life insurance.
So if I use that technique, the heirs still get their money, but I'm still creating a whole new legacy with my IRA. And there's some tax advantages to this?
Yeah, the goal is to make sure that the heirs get as much or more money than they would have gotten, and at the same time, create a large endowment for a favored charity.
Well, Harold and Martha are 65 and 60. Their current net worth is a little over $5.5 million, which includes the IRA we've been talking about, valued at about $1 million. Based on their taking required minimum distributions, beginning in 5 years, their IRA is expected to grow almost to $1.6 million by their mid-80s and gradually reduce thereafter due to the accelerated RMDs. Now, Harold and Martha are both active in the Red Cross. I guess that's their charity of choice.
Yes.
And remember, you always want to pick a charity that's approved by the IRS. Make sure you do that before you do anything else. But remember, one of the key reasons why Bob Ritter brings this up in this blog is because most advisors do not ask their client, do you have a charity or a foundation you'd like to go forward? This is really key. Most every time we bring this up, almost everybody says, I would like to do something.
Yeah, what we find is as people get older, they become more and more involved with different types of charities. And if you ask that question, more often than not, they're going to want to help them when they ultimately die, if they can, without it being too much of an impact to their net worth and what they pass on to their kids.
Well, let's look at a little bit of what they're doing here. They're taking the charitable IRA approach, $1 million of increasing death benefit on a second-to-die insurance where you have 2 lives on 1 contract, and they're going to use that in a wealth replacement trust, and the annual gifts are only going to be $14,000, which I find is extraordinary at that price tag.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
And now let's check out this table. Tell me what's going on here.
Well, by using the $14,000 annual gifts and buying the life insurance in the wealth replacement trust, what we're doing is comparing what the heirs would receive from the IRA fully taxable against what they would receive from the wealth replacement trust, the irrevocable life insurance trust, non-taxable. And as you see at age 65 and 60, they've got $1 million taxable and $1 million non-taxable with the wealth replacement trust. And you can see the different ages. For example, at 80 and 75, we have $1.6 million taxable if they kind of keep what they currently have versus $1.3 million of tax-free with the wealth replacement trust. And all the way out, let's go to the very last one. At 95 and 90, with the current plan, no wealth replacement trust, they'd have $1.2 million taxable versus $1.7 million to the heirs tax-free.
Now keep in mind, as we were going down through this table, I noticed, well, in the earlier years, if you would have taken the 1.6 taxable versus the shorter version or the smaller amount of tax-free, 1.3, remember that still could have won depending upon their bracket and their estate.
Absolutely.
So keep in mind that there is going to be a crossover year somewhere in their life expectancy where they will win, hands down, tax-free. But even in the earlier years, when it looks a little short, once I do the math, it doesn't really make sense. And remember, if these people are anywhere near preferred or better, they're going to be out here in the 90s to the late 90s.
Well, if you look at the line of what the heirs receive on an after-tax basis, if you run those calculations, they're either as good or better off in all years.
I love that. Now, remember, what we did was you did a summary result here. We took both strategies, including Harold and Martha, with $150,000 of after-tax cash flow, indexed again at 3%. The gifts to the trust for the life insurance premiums were $14,000. Again, I find that extraordinarily cheap for what they're going to get out of this. And in strategy 2, are paid for via the asset allocation and not from their cash flow. See, I think this is a big deal. Why don't you talk about that, and then we'll get into this graph.
Yeah, we designed InsMark's Wealthy and Wise software as wealth planning software. So you put all the clients' assets in, their liquidity, their assumptions of growth in the future. And what we're a very big believer in is nobody's going to make gifts to fund a wealth replacement trust if they're worried about running out of money. And that's the #1 fear that people have during retirement, running out of money. So what Wealthy and Wise does is it allows you to look at all their current assets and the liquidity, project out their needs for retirement, and then if they've got plenty of money and their net worth is still growing, you can then assume certain gifts, in this case $14,000 a year, and see kind of what happens over time, and does that then put them at risk? In this particular case, they could easily gift $14,000 a year and have absolutely no worry that they would run out of money during retirement.
We'll talk about, here's their current situation in strategy 1.
Here's their current situation where they keep the beneficiary of their IRA, their kids, and here we have $433,000 of transfer taxes, tax on the IRA at their death, and the heirs receive $9.2 million, which is the green portion.
Now in strategy 2, we're including the charitable IRA option.
That's right. In strategy number 2, we are doing a couple things. First is we're changing the beneficiary from the kids on the IRA, the $1 million IRA, to the charity, the Red Cross in this case. We're also forming a wealth replacement trust, an irrevocable life insurance trust, and funding it with the $14,000 annual premiums. And so in this case, the heirs receive $9.2 million, the Red Cross receives $1.2 million eventually from the IRA, and the IRS gets $0.
Well, I love this because really we've created a legacy for their favorite charity, and the heirs did not get any diminishing return at their inheritance.
In all years on an after-tax basis, again, the heirs get as much or more than they would have gotten with the current plan.
Now let's do a little redux here on this graph below. And again, this is the power of looking at Wealthy and Wise and showing how it reduxes this. Walk us through it.
Yeah, this is the Wealthy and Wise comparison graph, which is one of the most powerful graphs the program produces. And it's exactly what I'm saying. Strategy 1 is the current plan. Strategy 2 is where we make the Red Cross the beneficiary of the IRA. And as you can see, the net worth to heirs is, well, we're better on an after-tax basis in the early years, and it's essentially the same throughout life expectancy.
So if the heirs get the same amount, and I've created a huge boon for the charity, which in this case was the Red Cross, everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Now, let's talk about this, walk through the key takeaways from this strategy. And I think these are great closing talking points when you're talking to a client. While the dollar value of their inheritance is similar, the heirs are better off with strategy 2 due to the favorable tax treatment of tax-free life insurance in the trust compared to staying with their traditional tax-deferred IRA. The Red Cross ultimately benefits even the more because now they've just created $1.2 million worth of death benefit. And lastly, this is all accomplished through the Fontaines having the retirement cash flow they desire while also maintaining an increasing level of net worth as shown in the graph below. This is the power again of looking at InsMark's Wealthy and Wise and how this can demonstrate the power of life insurance and in this case, a second to die. Today's sales idea is brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company.
And by InsMark, the most widely used software when it comes to strategies and presentations using cash value life insurance.